My name is Mark Burris. I'm a customer success advocate with Blackboard. And I see some faces from this morning's session, but for those of you who are new to my sessions today, customer success advocate is a new role with Blackboard, and our focus is to help colleges and universities with adoption. And so one of the things is what we're doing today. We've been leading some sessions about best practices, and so in the final session for the day is the Exemplary Course Program, and I'm very excited about this program, and I have a lot more to say about it here momentarily. But before I get to that, I just want you to know that I've really enjoyed my stay here at University of North Dakota, and I love your weather. I would like to take it back with me because it's 90 degrees where I'm from, and so but beautiful fall weather, and it's a lovely campus, and so you guys, it's a great place. So thank you for inviting us and getting us here. I'm also at lunch we were having a conversation about resources, and the Exemplary Course Program came up, and so I was very glad to hear that that's a mainstay for you in your SILT resources. And I'm sure that Diane and others would be happy to discuss this in more detail. As a matter of fact, when we were first talking about what I might present when I came on campus, designing an exemplary course was selected, and it's actually a series. There's actually 4 of these that would take you an entire day of nothing but the exemplary course program. But you know, a lot of people don't have time for that, and so I've kind of distilled this into a single 1-hour sort of presentation. So we're going to fly through a lot of this, but the metaphor that we're going to be using today is building a house. So and the agenda is, to build a house, you need a good blueprint. You need some resources. You need to pass inspection, and then you need to ask a lot of questions and get a lot of answers. So hopefully that's what we're going to accomplish today. So the first part of this is getting a blueprint, and you know, once again, we've got this nice little slide. So what I've given you is you've got several handouts here. Probably the most important one, or the one that we're going to use a lot today, is the Exemplary Course Rubric itself. I went ahead and printed that out for you. And then the other one is 7 Principles of Good Practice in Undergraduate Education by Chickering and Gamson. And this document was developed in the 1980s, a long time. So if you don't have that, I'll be happy to get that to you. It was actually developed before there were ever any online courses. Can you imagine? So one of the things, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but the 7 principles of good practice are, when you read through those and you think about how you would do that in each and every one of your face-to-face sessions, you can very quickly understand that you couldn't do all 7 of those in every session. But when the online learning environment came along, that has really helped totally online courses and also face-to-face classes accomplish that. And so as you're going through the Exemplary Course Rubric, you may want to think about these 7 principles and how you'd fold that into your course design. So course design's foundation. In the rubric, we have 4 main sections: course design, interaction and collaboration, assessment, and learner support. And we'll be going through these. What we'll do today is we can't go through all of these. As you can see, if you turn the page over there, each one of these has a lot of cells. There's a lot of tiny words. So a lot of information there. But we'll talk about the rubric and the program here in just a moment. So, but the four areas of design, interaction and collaboration, assessment, and then finally learner support. So here's the rubric available for you. You can also find this online. And let me go ahead and just jump over here to this real quick. If you go to Blackboard.com, you can do you can type in Exemplary Course Program in the search field, and it will bring you to this page. This has been revamped, and unfortunately my page is cutting off, and the projector is distorting this. But there's a lot of information here. You can also find the rubric electronically here. So just remember Blackboard.com and Exemplary Course Program. There's a lot of information that I'm going to share with you today that's on this page, but you can also get an electronic version of the rubric. So let me jump back to the presentation. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it has a history. Blackboard bought WebCT, and one of the things that they inherited from WebCT was the Exemplary Course Program. And I'm very happy to say that they continued on with it, and they have developed it and helped it to flourish. As a matter of fact, it is so popular now that they've had to completely revise the process. It used to be that you would submit once a year, and then you would get notification about your courses. You would certainly get feedback, regardless of whether you won an award or not. But you get notification, and the awardees would go to Blackboard World, and you would have a poster up there, and you would talk about your course to people who came by. They have so many submissions now that they've had to go year-round. Okay, and so I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. But here's one thing. If you don't take anything else away from what I say today, I highly recommend that you go to the website we just got through looking at and apply to be a reviewer. Now you say, I don't even know anything on this rubric. Don't worry about it. They'll teach you. Okay, they'll train you with this process if you want to do this. And here's the thing, is that it will expose you to a lot of different courses from your colleagues around the country. They will try to match you with a course that is in your specialty area. That's not always the case. And as a matter of fact, it's been my experience that I learn a lot from looking at courses that are outside of my field. So I highly recommend that you do that. So that's all I'm really going to say about the history. The program is continuing, and it is very prosperous. So, all right. So, what might the benefits of this blueprint be? First of all, obviously, how to design an exemplary course is your primary goal. Now, that in and of itself can be a bit controversial, right? Because there's a lot of different courses, and I have taught a variety of courses in my life. And one thing I did notice that I didn't design them all the same way. There's different learning goals for each course, and so I would need to identify the learning goal. And then there would be different types of assessment that I might want to do. And so I would start looking at that and then working backwards. So some of you who are in this morning's session, a backwards design process is very useful. What is your learning goal, and how will I know that students have reached that goal at the end of the term? And so you can use that and work backwards to design your course. So how to design an exemplary course is for individual faculty and then for design teams, because as SILT has done, they've taken the Exemplary Course Program and they've built that into the resources available to you. And so this is a fantastic resource for you to do that. It gives you information about best practices, and And here's the thing, is that when you start as a reviewer, you're going to meet a lot of very interesting people, and you're going to learn a lot about course design just from that process. So once again, I highly recommend that. So here's the link to the official guidelines, and only courses with a completed submission form will be reviewed. Okay, so if you forget to complete the form, and that you've got to apply. Okay, and we'll talk about this. There's some specific things that you'll need to include. So, for example, if you're going to have your course materials, but if you have supplementary materials, so for example, if you're in a blended environment, a classroom that uses Blackboard in some capacity, and you're going to do a blended environment, and you're submitting that for an exemplary award, they won't know what your interaction and collaboration is, because you may be doing that in the classroom, in the physical classroom. So you need to have some evidence of that that you would include in supplementary materials, and so there's a variety of formats that can be captured in. So that's what that's all about. All right, so building your course using the rubric. We're going to try to get to the nitty-gritty of this very quickly. It can be used by course designers, it can be used by yourself, but using the rubric doesn't guarantee that your course is going to be approved. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But obviously, it's a step in the right direction. All right, so let's take an overview of this. Let's open this up, your handout, and let me say one last thing about the process is that since the process has now moved to an annual, it's no longer an annual, but it's a continuous process. Go to that website for some details. They're actually still formulating some of those processes, and I would imagine that as we move closer to Blackboard World 2016, there's probably still going to be some changes. But Blackboard is very interested in continuing to promote that, and it would be a great resource for you guys. So let's notice here on course design. That's our foundation piece. You have on the rubric. Notice this is page 1 of 2. So the full section there on course design is on the back page as well. So you have goals and objectives, content presentation, learner engagement, and technology use. And notice that there's an X out there, and that means it's weighted. Okay. So in the last few years, they've made some changes to the process, and so instead of it being all monolithic in terms of its values, they've been weighting some things, because obviously goals and objectives are very important for your course. The content and learner engagement are very important. But one of the messages that's being given here by just technology is 1/3 the value of the others. Is that don't put technology in your course just for the sake of technology. That's a mistake that people often do, because what will happen is this. We were actually talking about some technology on the way over that was fun for a couple of weeks, and then you got over it, right? And so students are kind of the same way. They can get over the technology very quickly if it's not meaningful for their learning experience. So you can keep that in mind. So the different categories are weighted. All right. So let's look at goals and objectives here. And I promise we're not going to get too far into the weeds of this, but what I want to do is that we're going to focus on course design, and then you can apply the same steps that we're going to do with the others as well. Because if we were to do all 4 of these major categories, we would take up to 4 hours, and we don't want to do that this afternoon. Okay, so goals and objectives. Goals, and so here are, and notice then, under the exemplary column, you have exemplary, accomplished, promising, and incomplete. So they've been very nice about things, right? And so it's not terrible, it's incomplete, right? So just keep that in mind. And here's each of the categories has different criteria. So each of these performance levels, if you will. So you got the category of goals and objectives, and it has 4 levels of performance criteria. And those are, they're easily located, they're clearly written, they're measurable, and they're available in a variety of areas. Now, obviously there's some subjectivity there, but if, for example, if your goals and objectives were only in one area, then obviously that would not meet this particular criterion, right? It needs to be in more than one place. That doesn't mean that it has to be in 10 places. 2 or 3 is a good place, right? That's a good amount. So so can anyone? These guessing games can be difficult sometimes, but if you got, so where are a couple of places that you could put your goals for your course and goals for your units? Excellent, right? So it's definitely going to be, you definitely want to include that in your syllabus, right? And you want to make sure that the syllabus is easily located. You want to make sure that the syllabus itself is easy to navigate for the student. You know? So now here's the thing. This can be a challenge, and the reviewers understand this. Some departments require syllabi to be a certain format. Okay, but so long as the student can find that, and so that's another good reason. So, for example, if you have, I've seen some departmental syllabi that were very challenging. That they were 25 pages or more, right? And be that as it may, so what you want to do is you can take that and break that out a little bit and put that in another area. So goals and objectives could be in your syllabus, and then you could also have an introductory page about the course, and you could just have a bulleted area there for your goals. Now, typically for the course itself, you're probably not going to have more than 5. You know, maybe 6 or something like that, but you're not going to have 30, right? So it's just going to be a few. It's going to be something that could easily be there. So easily located, available in a variety of areas. So you could put that in a course introduction page. And then what about goals for your units? What comes to mind about that? Where might you put that? Right. So we're gonna have 5 units in this course.
So have a folder per unit.
There you go. Right. You have a folder per unit, and you've got on the first page of your folder is your objectives for that unit, right? And so that ties in. So that would very easy. So what I'm saying is this is not daunting to do this, but you can. But what you want to do is you want to use this to check this off. So have I got my goals for the course in more than one place? Have I got my unit goals clearly available, right? And then here comes the harder part, clearly written. Now, I don't know about you, but everything that I ever write, I fully understand, right? But my students don't always. So here's the thing. And I actually grew up in, my dad was a retailer, and I kind of grew up with a customer sort of perspective. And so I took that with my students. And so rather than being angry with them because they didn't understand my instructions, I took that to mean that I needed to improve my instructions. And so I kept changing that as I got feedback from students. And then one semester, I discovered that I didn't get any questions. And I thought, well, this bunch of people, they're just not interested in this course at all. And then it occurred to me. It was clear. They didn't need any follow-up, right? Because I had these other semesters of worth of feedback from students. I was able to incorporate that in. So clearly written. Your students are the best ones to help you with that. At least that's been my experience. Now here's the really hard part, is measurable. Okay? So is the statement, I want them to learn critical thinking. Is that measurable? It's a goal, right? But it's not measurable, right? And so, and I'm sure that the Silk folks will be happy to help you work all that out. But here would be the thing, is that I want them to demonstrate awareness of informal fallacies by identifying various fallacies in the context of a paper, right? So that's a little bit more manageable, or a little bit more measurable. It's not completely there. You could also say something to the effect of the goals, by the end of this unit, a successful student will have achieved 80% or better on understanding of, and I'm going to change topics here. I did phlebotomy this morning. I'm going to stay with it, so I'm a little brain dead right now. But so there might be a segment of that I want them to achieve a certain percentage level. So measurable is the hard part. And so when a lot of times when courses get submitted for review, this is where they get marked down. So let's look at this is the exemplary side of things, and I'm going to kind of break away a little bit from my script. And let's just, while we're here, let's look at accomplished, okay? And so this is what I want you to do. I want to stop talking for just a moment. I want you guys to do a think, pair, share. I want you guys to pair up, and you guys identify similarities and differences between exemplary and accomplished on goals and objectives. And we'll take about 3 minutes for that, and then we'll ask for volunteers to report. So if you got just whatever your natural combination is there, we got a couple in the back there, and then 3 here, a couple there, a couple here maybe. Just so it can be 2 or 3 or 4. So just you guys just discuss among yourselves what the distinctions are between exemplary and accomplished.
Objectives are written down there. This doesn't mention goals or exemplary. It's talking about goals.
Oh, that's true, but they're like you're all over the red too.
I'm surprised. Okay, got about a minute left. Okay, 10 seconds. All right, time flies when you're having fun, right? Okay, so let's hear from you guys. What did you think? Who'd like to go first? What did you observe between exemplary and accomplished? Yes, sir.
Well, the top thing for me, and I hear it from my students, is clarity. That it's clear, both on what you're telling them you want, and you're telling them how you're going to measure that.
Okay, so looking at this rubric here, what jumped out at you to make that observation?
Well, the second paragraph of exemplary is goals and objectives are clearly written, and the key word there is at the appropriate level.
Okay,
So
very
you
good.
need to understand where are your students at. Jane just talked earlier about doing a pre-course evaluation, which I don't do now, but I think would be useful.
Absolutely, and it's a great way to find out what your students already know,
Yes.
or if they have learned something wrong. Right, very often that's the case. Right. So, who else? What else did you see?
Well, I was here this morning, and I like, on accomplished, they have students have some understanding of what is expected of them, which is a problem because your students aren't really on board with you, so exemplary would be better, although I can't find the one that it's the most exemplary piece. Goals and objectives are made available in a variety of areas. We like the variety of areas, but I also like the fact that then they are more likely to understand it.
Right.
It's repeated. So repetition is the mother of all what?
Well, and I heard up here on the front row is that there's not a one-to-one correspondence there.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out.
So that's one reason why I like to do this little exercise is because you have to kind of look at these, and there's a little bit of interpretation that's going on there. But let's just take that top two, the top one on each of those, exemplary and accomplished. And notice it says an exemplary goals and objectives are easily located within the course, but on the accomplished it says goals and objectives are located. Right? So you could have them located, but not easily. So within the course syllabus or the individual learning units, okay? And so so here is a little bit of a hint. One of the things we were talking about earlier on is that so in that particular case, if you just had that information in your course syllabus and you just had that in individual learning units, that might not be enough, right? And so you may want to be a little bit more creative and think about where else you might want to include that. Now, yes, ma'am.
Give me an example other than, because I'm thinking very course specific, okay? But if it's in the syllabus and if each learning unit says the goals are, where else would you put it?
That's a great question. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
At the top and then with each unit. Because not every student's going to read the syllabus the same way.
Or not.
Well,
Some
and
of them don't read it at all.
anybody else have some thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
Specific assignment instructions.
Okay, very good. Specific assignment. So one thing you could do is on a specific assignment, you could say that this assignment matches this particular goal in the course, right? And so so Blackboard actually has a product called Goals. We were talking about this, and so you can map some of those. It takes a little bit of work to get that in there, but you could do some mapping on that. But you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. You could just put that in your assignment instructions as well. That might be one way to go about doing it. What you could another way, and this may seem a little trivial, but sometimes different people are going to be reviewing this, and that's another thing about this is that different people are going to have different interpretive aspects about that, and so you just kind of need to anticipate what they may be thinking as well. So you might have a resource folder that would have some things broken out individually. So, for example, if your syllabus is a little complex or very long, and you know, students don't read that, obviously. Here's an interesting way to go about doing it. Does anybody have a syllabus quiz? Yeah. So there you go. Your goals and objectives are listed as you ever use the multiple answer feature in Blackboard? There's more than just multiple choice, there's multiple feature, or multiple answer, I should say. So you could have 10 items there, and you say, there's 5 goals for this course, click all that apply.
Oh, that's a nice way to do it.
Right, so now I know that they've read,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so anyway, that would be another way of accomplishing this. Like I said, you just be creative. Now here's the other thing too, I can't emphasize this enough, is that every course is going to need to be designed somewhat differently because of the subject matter and your learning goals and things of that nature. And so you don't want to just plop stuff in there to meet some sort of rubric. You want that to be a meaningful resource for your students. Okay. Anything else on there? Exemplary and accomplished. What jumps out at you?
I noticed under exemplary, it lists goals and objectives for all 4 bullets. But then
Mhm.
under accomplished.
Oh, really?
It only lists goals for the first bullet.
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah,
Very
and
good.
then it doesn't list, it just says objectives for the other one.
Right. So let's look at that second bullet under accomplished. Right? Objectives are written to reflect desired learning outcomes. But what's wrong? What's the problem?
Not measurable.
They're not measurable, right? And so that's the question you need to ask yourself: is this a measurable goal? And that's not an easy answer. So you can actually dig around on the internet and find some resources that help you writing goals and objectives for your course. I'm sure you guys probably have some resources that you can share as well. Okay, well, let's move on. Here's another thing that you want to keep in mind as you're doing course design. Is those of you who are here for the first session this morning, my favorite slide, Bloom's Taxonomy. And you have, Bloom was an educator. In 1955, he and his team published Bloom's Taxonomy of Cognitive Domain. And what they had done is they had been studying how people learn, and they discovered, I think they discovered rather than created, 6 basic processes in how we learn anything. And so, to learn something, you have to remember, and this has been updated. It's only been updated one time since 1955, which to me is amazing. And so it's now written as verbs rather than nouns, like the original one. And so you need to be able to remember facts. You need to be able to understand what those facts mean, and then applying those facts, rules, and concepts, and ideas to some sort of context of an activity or history or philosophy or math or science, things of that nature. And then apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And so some people consider these, they can break this down in 3s or in 2s. And I don't think that's really all that big of a deal, but bottom line is that you may see higher order and lower order thinking in some of the literature. And so this is what this is referring to, is that certainly these lower 3 are what is being referenced in that kind of statement. And then the top 3 are higher order thinking. Because you've got to know information, understand how it can be used, actually apply it someplace, and before you can then begin to analyze the parts, right? Breaking things into component parts, and then evaluating whether or not this part can be used to create something else, right? And so this is a very wonderful tool to help you design your assessments as you're going through and designing your course. So I always, as you can tell, I could wax it up. I'm gonna move on, right? So, another thing yeah, so here would be, let's look down at the next section here of content presentation. And so let's notice that content is made available or chunked, okay? So let's take just a couple more minutes and do the same exercise we did a moment ago, and let's evaluate. Instead of two columns this time, let's do 3 columns. Okay. So let's look at content presentation, exemplary, accomplished, and promising, and you guys tell me what the differences there are. Okay. So about 3 minutes.
Big differences I see, exemplary, promising, exemplary is intuitive, logical, additional appropriate mechanisms, resources. Accomplished also includes additional mechanisms of frequency, promising is knowledge.
Okay. About 30 more seconds. Okay, so what do you think?
Intuitive. It's easy to
Ah.
follow.
Navigation is intuitive.
Yeah, you don't have to hunt around for instructions.
Right. Now, intuitive is one of those squishy words, isn't it? You know, and so I may think something's intuitive, but somebody else may not. But you know what we were actually talking about that today is that Apple and Facebook have spoiled us, right? Because they have created products that are intuitive, and you don't even need instructions on how to use it, right? As a matter of fact, there's a product development philosophy is that if you have to have instructions, you didn't design it right. Okay, it needs to be intuitive, and so if we apply that to our own courses, you know, I'm sure that we would do a lot of rewrites. Now here's another recommendation. This is a bonus recommendation. If you ever get a chance to take an online course especially a course that you're going to get credit in, like a graduate program of some sort, it will completely revolutionize your thinking. I remember the first time I took an online course, I went back and I changed everything in my courses because suddenly I'd been placed in the role of a student, and I realized that I was not setting up my courses in a way that was intuitive for students to navigate them. I just thought they were being lazy or whatever, you know, but they weren't. And so I knew. So I highly recommend it. So chunking your content. Now that's a big fancy word and all that sort of stuff. But we all use units and things of that nature. But the question is your unit too big? Is it too small? Like, so if you have 50 units, is that something that students are really going to understand? They have, they're really not going to be able to understand the complexity or the connections, right? So anyway, that sort of thing. So what jumped out at you in the content presentation? We've got intuitive already.
Easy to follow, which I think really flows from
Mm-hmm.
intuitive. The implication, if you add up all the exemplary and all the accomplished, is that the first itself follows logically. That there is a flow from one section to the next, whereas the accomplished means you put everything down, but you haven't necessarily thought about how it flows.
And in this particular exercise, we're also bringing in the promising. So what did you observe about looking across 3 spectrums?
Well,
that correct?
The third one's inconsistent, internally inconsistent. Large and small.
Okay.
Limited visual,
Yeah.
pieces, limited supplementary information, limited auditory pieces.
Right. So what do you think would be a good balance for that particular aspect? Now, let's look at that across that spectrum there. So few or no visual and auditory elements in the promising, and then the next one up is what? Visual and auditory elements occasionally enhance the content, and then exemplary, its content is enhanced with auditory elements. Supplementary resources are made available and are well integrated with other course materials. So, so if you had a course and you didn't have any audio or visual, if you just had text, you just, and that's what I hate, I'm on camera, but when I first did an online course, I just took my Word documents and put them online. What's wrong with that? Works for me, And so I had to start bringing those pieces in, right? Because it is a different medium. It is much more visual, and so anyway. But if I just started putting a bunch of stuff in there, would that make it exemplary? What would make it exemplary? What do you think that means?
I think it has to interface a little bit with what they're learning for their objectives, and if it doesn't have a meaning to them, they're not going to read it, they're not going to utilize it, and they have to know in the real world how it's going to work in their profession. That's sometimes very difficult, but I'm trying a new thing this semester. It's called Shadow Health, and they have to do an intake, and they interact with the individual, and then it scores them on how they communicate, how they critically think, but it prepares them for each lab. Instead of me going through an hour of lab, they come prepared and then they present. So it's more at a higher level thinking. And then I cue them and give them the key things and then show them. But I mean, it really has to integrate, and they have to grasp that it's really important to do the reading. And I think we're running into a generation where reading directions, just kind of skimming things, that's not adequate for professions.
Right.
Most professionals can never do that, or they'll run into some big problems.
Right.
So it really is key that you have integrated, or you know what I mean, it should kind of have some crossover exactly to what you want for outcomes and measure. I mean, in my opinion, it should.
No, I agree with you completely. I was just thinking about the fact that you know, Facebook and Apple, you know, there's no reading, you just respond to an app, you know, you press an icon, things happen, you know. And so the students that we're getting are challenged along those lines because they're actually having to read something and put that together. And so the visual connectors are more important to them than they are to us. So what you can do is, one thing you might want to do is, as you're preparing your course, instead of you having to come up with all that, make an assignment for students to say, okay, you know, read this paragraph or read this page, and then, you know, you can put them in groups if you want to. Design a graphic, or, you know, or describe a graphic that would represent that. And so you might want to use that then in subsequent courses.
I like the fact this morning you said call them research teams, or so don't call them groups.
Don't call them groups,
It was
right?
a
Research teams, yes.
Yeah.
I might have to change my slide because I said research groups, so
Yeah.
I violated my own principle, right? So yeah,
But you want it to
research
sound a
teams.
little more important than a group. 'cause
Oh,
many
absolutely.
Groups all their life, you know.
Right. And some people will give them names, you
Oh,
know, and
yeah.
all that sort of stuff. And so, you know, you can get creative. Well, that's chunking the material. I want to be mindful of our time. The support walls, I'm not going to go into the details of this, but interaction and collaboration, I do want to point this out because you can do a great job with this basic design, but just remember, that's the foundation, okay? Because what is really going to get you recognition in this endeavor is that you have built-in interaction and collaboration. And so on this particular slide, there's a little bit of a definitional difference here between those two things. Interaction can be discussions. The students are interacting with each other, whereas the collaboration is a group of students are pooling their efforts to create a product. And so here would be the thing is and you know, don't be offended by this, but if you just have content and test, and that's your course, you're not, you need to bring some project-based learning into that mix. And it's very easy for almost everybody. Now that's a little bit more difficult for some of the humanities folks, but here's another bonus tip. Students love extreme sports and extreme TV kind of stuff. And so you can assign them to watch a series all semester long that's related to those extreme reality show kind of stuff, and then evaluate what's going on. And so you can fold the critical thinking skills into that. And so think of something that is relevant to your field. All right. So here's an example. I was teaching a business ethics course. And so the first semester they gave it to me late. I was an adjunct instructor, and you know what happens with adjunct instructors? They say, you know, teach course. When does it start? Tomorrow. Right. So go design an online course on it. So that's what I did. I just got through the textbook the first semester. I was bored to death, and I thought, if I'm bored with this, I know they're bored with this, right? And so I just got in the textbook a couple of days before the semester began, and this nice little chapter at the end was put everything together. And as I was reading that, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be fun? And that's, you know, sometimes I have a hard time with fun, right? I said, wouldn't it be fun to set this whole course up to come to this point as a project? And so it's a business ethics class, and I said, okay. And so here's something called a metaphor, right? I said, okay, I'm going to, so it was, since it's a business class, I said, okay, when you get out of here, where are you going to go to work? What kind of industry? So I divided the students into they told me what they were going to go into, and so I divided them into like 3 or 4 different groups of like industry kinds of things. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I am a CEO of a company in the industry that you're going to go into. And you are a team, you're a consulting team, and I am hiring you to make my company the industry standard for ethics in that industry. Okay, and so all semester long you're going to do this project, and at the end of the semester you're gonna present to the entire class, and I'm either gonna hire you or fire you. Right? And I cleared that with the dean of instruction first, but it worked. Now here's the thing, I can't tell you that they loved it because it was a lot more work for them, right? And here was the thing, is they work in groups, and I spent a lot of my time managing the drama, okay? But they learned what it, so here's the thing, is I would say, do you realize that you are acting unethically with your partner in this situation, And so anyway, it was some real life learning experiences that they could take, and of course, in a business environment, they're going to be working in groups anyway, and they're going to have to be working electronically very often. So it worked out very well. Yes, ma'am.
So can you share with us how you would rearrange that same assignment to work with an asynchronous enroll anytime group that you don't know how many students you're going to have in that Blackboard shell in that course at any particular time, and they're all at different points in the course?
That is more challenging.
I
Right. But in the real world, you're going to have work groups that, you're going to have veterans that have been in that company for a long time, and you've got people that are new to that and all that sort of stuff. You could at certain points say, you need to join this, so make it available so they can choose their own group to be involved in. And so if I'm a newbie coming into that, so somebody's been in the course now for 3 weeks and all that sort of stuff, I might set up some processes, and it's actually part of the evaluation for veteran students, if you will, veteran workers, to help bring me up to speed, but you're still having to work on this project because there's a certain deadline on that regardless. Okay, so but that is a big challenge, and so I don't want to minimize that. But just off the top of my head, I would say that's still real world, and I think you can do that. You can certainly do that in a face-to-face classroom where you have full 16 weeks and you can divide people up and all sorts. So whether you're face-to-face or online, you can still do that same sort of process. And so I've given you a couple of suggestions. One is extreme sports or extreme whatever, reality shows, and then a metaphor that relates to the jobs that people get in your topic. Okay. We've got about 5 minutes left. Let me just say a couple of things here. Some of the interaction examples are wikis, blogs, discussions, etc. You can use rubrics to guide the students in that process so that they're not, and you can also give the rubrics to the students and let them evaluate each other, so that will reduce the grading load for you. And assessment is, I could talk all day long just about assessment alone. Self-assessment is a huge part of that process, so that students are being able to evaluate where they are in that process as they're moving along. And this was an activity that I'm going to bypass for the sake of time. Here's this last piece is the learner support, which is the last 2 pages of the document that you have. And this one there's more on here than there is anywhere else, and it can be really overwhelming. But here's the good thing: is that SILT already has a lot of these resources, and UND already has a lot of these resources on their website. It's just a matter of you making sure that those resources are easily accessible in your course. Okay? So and also notice that almost every one of those is either a 1 or a 0.5. Okay? Notice that little dot before the 5. So learner support is very important, but there's a lot of things there. And that can be as easy in some of the courses and stuff that I've been a reviewer in and help people manage. That can be as easy as creating a folder called Learner Resources, right? and just making that available, and just walk through your university website and get those resources. So I think that we're coming up on the end here. Are there any last minute questions or thoughts?
I just wanted to bring attention to the last page, second from the bottom, accommodation for disabilities.
Yes.
Because we were just talking about that before, but of course, we're there, so that's like universal design for instruction. It's really important nowadays, and there's a whole big thing now on court cases about captioning videos, and we're trying to make sure when we put things out, they're captioned, but it's also captioned well, because the ones that automatically caption are,
Right.
the word is wrong, or, saying, good luck, it's not good luck, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to go there, right?
But so I'm finding these things out this last semester, it matters, that we do that. So as you're doing new things, remembering that you can get them captioned and they can, so it
Absolutely.
can help you look
Now,
at that.
the really good news is that, and I won't go into all the details, but I was sharing with Jane earlier, is that Blackboard is the only LMS that's ever received an award from the National Academy for the Blind. And I was part of that process, because at the university I was at, we had a very large contingency of disability students, and so I worked with the Disability Resource Center, and we got a lot of things through with Blackboard, and so they listen. And that was a big takeaway for me. They listen. They're also very interested in making sure that happens, and so 9.1 is fully, it's as good as you're going to get. We're working on a new user interface, and so what we've done is, as a result of that whole project, Blackboard has embraced the idea is that you do accessibility as part of your design,
Right.
not on the
Going back
caboose.
later, people just
Not
they just
retrofitting,
don't have
right.
time,
So Collaborate Ultra has closed captioning in it.
Oh, it does, right.
Collaborate Classic has closed captioning in it, so we already have those components. It is going to continue to be a priority for us.
Great.
You've been a great group. I've enjoyed today, and please feel free to contact me anytime. Be happy to. I want to hear some of your stories about how you take some of these ideas and really run with them. So thank you very much, UND.
Thank you.